Hello, my friend, and hello, my friends, and I hope you are having, well, a better day than yesterday. Things are a little weird right now, and they're probably going to be for a few days. No matter how you feel about things going on, I do hope that you are doing well and taking care of yourselves. In general, my personal advice in these sorts of times is to keep living your life and making everything around you as good as you can, because it's really the only thing we have control over in the end. That said, I'm going to talk about something I still don't have control over, but at least it's interesting for me to talk about. So yesterday on Twitter, I saw this person make this tweet. They have since either deleted their account or somehow hidden it entirely. You can no longer find the account on Twitter. It doesn't come up at all. But people were kind enough to screenshot this because I went to make this video and I couldn't find the tweet because, gone. So here you have a customer service response from Hoyo, the makers of Genshin Impact. And it says, customer service responded, "Dear traveler, thanks for your feedback. Please be kindly reminded that Genshin Impact is a work of fiction and not related to actual people's events, groups, or organizations. We really do hope for your understanding. Kind regards, Genshin Impact CS team." And this person says in response to receiving this letter, Genshin is not real life. Genshin Impact. What kind of response is this when a player submits feedback about the racism and colorism? Embarrassing, unprofessional behavior from a company of grown-ups and supposedly mature, well-read developers. Hashtag why are they white, Hoyo? So here's the interesting thing about this. And this whole thing has multiple levels. First, this is an automated response. So they're immediately upset about an automated response that really is just there to remind you that Genshin Impact has no place in real life. So if you are upset about something, don't be upset. That said, they're also apparently upset because they feel the character design within Genshin Impact is not colorful enough, I guess. I don't know a whole lot about it, Genshin Impact. I know they have had some controversy in the past regarding skin tones and people using art and stuff or fan art of the various characters within the game. But what I really want to talk about out of this is the idea that games are not real life. Now, you get into some interesting situations here because on one hand, they will talk about Genshin not being real life, but I would almost bet money that this same person would turn around and say that Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't real life. It's a work of fiction. You shouldn't be so upset because it's fiction. While at the same time being upset that the entirely divorced from reality world of Genshin Impact, I don't believe in even it takes place on Earth, doesn't represent enough colors and shades of people from a game developed in China. So what does this mean? I mean, it's funny because that's one of those discussions that you get both sides in on because you will have people who say, on one hand, people agree this game is not, this game is fiction, so why are they upset about this? And then you have people who are upset about Assassin's Creed because, it's got a black guy in it, but it's still fiction and it's a game. And I think the problem certain people have reconciling in their head is that when you are talking about something based on history, people are, of course, going to want to see something that reflects history. When you're talking about something that resembles a real location, a real life location that you could jump on a plane and fly to, people are going to want to see that accurately represented, even within their world of fiction. Just because it's fiction doesn't mean it can't be accurately represented. Now, the events and stuff that occur around that can then be unrealistic, but there still has to be some amount of reality to ground you in the story, or the story becomes unbelievable. Now, in something like Genshin Impact, which is obviously an entirely different world, it doesn't need to have the same amount of reality. It's the reason why Middle Earth works, but if you were to do a game, well, actually, come to think of it, Assassin's Creed Valhalla had that black Jarl in it, which, again, doesn't make sense because it doesn't fit in the framework that they are working in. And it's funny because I saw Alyssa Mercante bring up the same thing when people were complaining. I think it was about Star Wars. And she's like, well, it's fictional. So why do you care? Because in order to write a convincing story, you first have to build a world. Worlds have rules. To keep people grounded in that story, you have to follow the rules of the world you created. Now, you can break those rules sometimes as long as you provide a compelling explanation of why the rules are capable of being broken. If you set up a rule in a book or a story or a video game, whatever it is, a TV show, we'll just go with the word story. If you set up a rule within a story that women can't use magic, only men can use magic, and you decide that there is one single female out there who can use magic, you then have to explain why that female can use magic. And you have to come up with new rules regarding that situation. When you step outside of those rules and you don't provide an explanation to the audience loses faith in what you're writing. They don't understand what you're writing. It doesn't make sense anymore. And if you want people to follow and enjoy the story, it needs to make enough sense that they're not actively thinking about the plot holes. That's why so much of current day TV is very good, because they're not tracking their own rules well enough to be able to call back to them. It's a combination of having too many writers and not enough documentation. It should be fairly obvious where the boundaries are. And in many ways, giving people boundaries does spur a different type of creativity. I won't necessarily say more creativity, because when you have an open field to work with and the ability to make whatever rules you want, that is obviously very creative. When you are having to deal with a box and you're trying to figure your way out without just bursting a wall open, that takes a different type of creativity. There's a reason the quote, necessity is the mother of invention, exists, because if you have a story you want to tell and you have a framework in which you have to tell it, you have to figure out how you are going to tell that story within that framework. I'm trying to think of a good example, because there are often things people will ask, well, how does this happen? And I'll make up an excuse for it. 9 times out of 10, they believe it too. A lot of times I'm just, talking up my ass. A lot of times I end up being right. It's funny. It's like those situations, those tiny situations within video games that irritate me. Final Fantasy 14, for example, when I was playing it, and you get to a certain part where somebody dies. Well, I was a healer at the time, and it really pissed me off that the person who died, I was incapable of healing. Turns out that person comes back later because they weren't actually killed. It was all part of a plot. But it still makes no sense in terms of the rules of the world that you have a fucking healer right there. And I've healed people from the brink of death before. For some reason, I am incapable of healing this person who is just poisoned. Please explain that one to me. Now, they half-assed did in that the person wasn't dead. But again, still irritating. I've always hated those kinds of things in cutscenes. When somebody just automatically dies and it's like, dude, Final Fantasy VII, Aerith dies. Why the fuck can't I give her a phoenix down? Someone explain that one to me. It pissed me off to this day. If you're going to kill somebody, make it realistic. Make it so that there's some way, take them away and kill them so that there's some kind of timer on it or something. I don't know. Burn their body so I can't bring them back. Figure it out. Because that's one of those tiny things that always irritates me. I know it's dumb, but it always irritates me. It's like watching a movie and you see the continuity errors. And you're like, what? Or when you're watching Star Wars anymore and you see what they're doing to the lore. Or you're watching anything anymore. Anything that has a lore. Anything that's supposed to have a basis behind it. For some reason, the idea of a consistent story is an anathema to some people. I don't get it. The best stories are creative because they tell the story in a way that fits within the rules defined by the world they're told in. And if they break the rules of the world they're told in, there's a good reason. It's not just, well, we said so. It wasn't this way yesterday, but today we said so, so here we are. Or it's not just, well, it's fiction. Forget about it. Because at that point, you stop enjoying it. At that point, how are you supposed to judge what's coming up next? Which, it's nice to be surprised, but on the other hand of things, you want your stories to make sense. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. But some people only... we can get into a whole conversation about certain socio-political beliefs that explain why some people think this way. But I don't want to be that channel. I'm here to talk about video game and video game related items. I'm not here to break down the, like I said, the socio-political meaning behind everything. These are the things that I, as a gamer in this world, find irritating and dislike, with an idea behind what my steps will be, and you can take them if you like. Not anything else in this world. But there's nothing more frustrating to me than people who don't understand how to tell a story. People who seem to think that if you just call it fiction, all of a sudden it doesn't matter what you do because, dude, it's fiction. It's not real. Yeah, I get it's not real. But at the same time, I also get that it's much more fun and entertaining when people have to struggle within the rules, because that's what we all do every day. It's one of those funny things about escapism. Escapism gives us the space to run away from what we deal with every day by watching someone else kind of deal with what we deal with every day, but in a different location, because they have to struggle with the rules of their world too. They have to deal with the fact that whatever country they're living in is at war, or their mother has been kidnapped by orcs, or they woke up one day and found out that they are in fact the fated king of an entirely separate kingdom, but was hidden away after his family was killed because he is the one to bring unity back to the gods, or something like that. Or because he's the knight returning after years being exiled because his queen summoned him back after she ascended the throne when her father was killed, and he found her encased in crystal and unable to talk to her or touch her because she had fallen ill with the same sickness her father had. And now he is on a magical quest to figure out how he can save the queen. It's just like every day in real life, right? Yes and no. But at the same time, it's what lets us escape. I guess that's really all I can say, is that it's what lets us escape. The books that I have just described, because these are novel series. The first one is The Bulgariad by David Eddings, and the second one, still by David Eddings, is The Elenium. The first book of that would be The Crystal Throne. I'm trying to remember the name of the first book of The Bulgariad. I can't right now. But good reads, absolutely recommend. Check them out. There's so much struggle and blame people place while trying to figure out why some people hold the points of view they have, when in the end it's just some people don't get it. Maybe they weren't taught, maybe they're not smart enough to get it, I don't know. But when you build a world to make it believable, it has to function by its own rules, no matter what they are. I've said that like a dozen times now. But that said, what are some worlds that you think of when you think of worlds that operate by their own rules? Video game, book, wherever you find them. Leave some of those descriptions down in the comments. Talk about the rules within those worlds. I'd be really interested to hear that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. If you really liked it, you can feel free to share it around, and I will catch you later.